He called her hopeless. Months later, the bride stopped her own wedding to thank that same girl, in public. Back then, Kene said the word like a verdict. They sat in a roadside eatery with bright Fanta bottles stacked behind the counter. He leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice casual. "You don't have ambition," he said, brushing crumbs from his shirt. "I need a woman who can match my pace." Amara stared at the steam rising from her pepper soup. Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him that slow beginnings can still reach great heights. Instead, she said nothing. "Hopeless," he repeated, standing as if the conversation were a meeting he needed to close. He left a small bill on the table and walked out. Words may sound like air, but they land like bricks. That one sat heavy in her chest for weeks. She went home to her tiny room and cried until the tears ran dry. Kene moved on quickly. Everyone said so. Photos started to appear. Him in new shirts, him in new places, him with a new woman who wore time like gold. People loved to watch men climb. They filmed it with their mouths. "He's doing well," they said. "He's a doer." Maybe he was, but the difference between doing and becoming is time, and time belonged to God and to those who do not stop. Amara looked at her palm the next day as if answers might be written there. It was an ordinary hand with small scars from ordinary work. But she knew this: if a hand can hold water, even for a moment, it can hold a future. She did not have a rich uncle, she did not have a sponsor, a car, or fancy English. What she had was a stubborn breath that refused to end early. So she made a promise, quiet, private, as soft as a prayer. "I will become proof," she said. Not proof to humiliate anyone, not proof to impress neighbors. Proof for the girl inside her who had believed in her since childhood. Proof for that little voice that still dreamed when the lights went out. Proof that a person can be renamed by their own work. On that same morning, far away from her little room, Kene laughed in a photo with his bride-to-be, and so the world kept moving as if two stories were not walking toward the same door. But stories love doors, and the word hopeless had already stepped through the first one. The first week after the breakup tasted like old smoke. Amara went to the market to buy tomatoes and sat on a wooden bench, watching women bargain with a skill that sounded like music. She had 2,800 naira in her purse and an ache that tried to be her boss. She looked at soap bars stacked like bright bricks and thought of the way cleaned things start small. Just foam, just scent, just patience. "Soap is honest," she murmured. "It shows what it touches." She found a wholesaler with kind eyes and a sharp pencil. He counted slowly, not because he was slow, but because he respected numbers. Respecting small things is the start of miracles. Amara used most of her money to buy a handful of supplies: base soap, fragrance oil, color, simple wraps. She carried them home in a cheap bag that cut into her fingers and wrote a name in her skin. It hurt, but it also told her, "You are carrying something." At home, the room smelled like effort. She mixed in a plastic bowl, stirring with a wooden spoon that used to belong to her mother. The first batch looked timid, like it didn't want to exist. That's how many first attempts look. But when the bars set, she cut them into neat rectangles and wrapped them with brown paper and a slim ribbon. She wrote "Sunrise" in neat letters and added a short line: "Begin again." The line was for her, but customers love honesty. She took the soaps door to door in her neighborhood: small flats, welded gates, dusty corridors where children chased one another with laughter like bells. Some people said no. Some said, "Come back next time." Some bought. By evening, her feet burned and her purse was not heavy, but her eyes were different. They had a small light inside. The second week, she returned to the market. The wholesaler nodded as if he had been expecting her. She bought more. She learned to fold faster. She learned to greet old women first and listen to their stories about knees and grandsons and God. She learned how to leave a free sample with a man who asked too many questions. She learned that dignity is not money. It is the way you stand when you have no money. One afternoon, a widow shuffled by, her wrapper tired, her eyes carrying too many nights. She touched the soap gently, as if it might break. "My daughter likes nice things, but life." Her voice faded like a small radio with a weak battery. Amara placed 2 bars in her hand and closed her fingers around them. "Pay me when it is easy," she said. "Sometimes business is not a line of profit. It is a line of people who remember you." The next day, the widow sent 3 neighbors. They bought. They told others. And the rumor began. The good kind. The soft wind that says, "There is a girl selling honest soap." At night, when the compound generator coughed and the lights went out, Amara placed her ear against the quiet. "Begin again," she repeated. She wrote down every sale, every name, every small mistake. She did not need permission to be careful. Care is free. Care builds things that last. And when a friend sent a photo of Kene at a rooftop lounge, glass in hand, city lights behind him like diamonds showing off, Amara only smiled. Climbing is loud, rooting is silent. She was not racing him. She was racing the lie that had been planted in her. Every bar she wrapped said, "This is who you are now, someone who begins." In time, ashes became matches. The old pain became fuel. The word hopeless became a dare. She placed a small tin box under her bed and dropped in her first real profit. Crisp notes folded like tiny promises. They sounded like wings when she counted them. She slept that night with the window slightly open, letting the city's warm air carry her new name. Not hopeless, not again. By the 3rd month, the business stopped being a whisper and became a voice. Amara rented a small corner in the market, a square of ground, and a bright umbrella that flapped like a proud flag when the wind teased it. She bought a second table from a carpenter who smelled like wood and stories, and stacked sunrise bars in neat rows like patient soldiers. Children came first, because children always find light. They loved the ribbon. They loved the smell called rain morning and the one called sweetbread. Mothers followed. Office workers on their way home stopped to buy 2 bars at once, because good routine is a kind of wealth. One teacher praised Amara's neat handwriting and suggested adding a tiny note on the back, "Thank you for supporting small beginnings." People smiled when they read it. One day, a young girl in a faded uniform lingered near the stall, pretending to study the soaps, but really studying hope. Her shoes had opened their mouths, and the hem of her skirt had learned the language of dust. She kept touching the sweetbread bar as if it were a story she wanted to live inside. "You can have that one," Amara said softly. "I have no money," the girl answered. "I didn't ask for money," Amara said. She wrapped it in brown paper and wrote, "For your tomorrow." When she handed it over, the girl's eyes filled with light. Not tears, light. That evening, the girl returned with her mother, a hair braider with quick hands and a tired smile. They bought 4 bars. The next week, they brought 3 salon customers. A hair salon smells like patience and gossip. Both are good for business. Amara started to keep a different ledger alongside her sales book. This one was for lives. She wrote, "Widow, 2 bars, payable later. Girl, gift today. Salon, referral." It wasn't charity, it was memory. She believed money returned when it was treated with respect, and respect is remembering the person attached to the coin. She met people who moved her forward. A printer offered discounted labels because his wife liked the rain morning scent and said it made the bathroom feel like a fresh start. A bus driver agreed to deliver small wholesale packs to a neighborhood she couldn't reach yet. An online reseller messaged her and asked to stock Sunrise in a boutique that sold only local brands to office ladies who liked their bags structured and their soaps unproblematic. The first time Amara saw her bars on a glass shelf under white light, something inside her stood up taller. But growth brings new lessons. A bigger order came from a small hotel, 50 bars for guest rooms. Amara nearly danced. Then the fragrance supplier missed a delivery and her careful schedule bent like wet cardboard.
She sat at her table late into the night, forehead in her palms. "Begin again," she whispered, but her voice sounded tired. She woke at 4 a.m., boiled water on a single ring, and improvised. She mixed a new scent by combining two old ones, a risk, but it worked. She named it Citrus Dawn. The hotel loved it. They asked for standing orders. Problems had tricked her into invention. She wrote it down. When a door jams, oil the hinges with courage. And the city kept moving. Kene's photos kept multiplying. Dinners, trips, progressive suits. People tagged him, #winning. But some wins are shallow water. They shine until you step in and realize they barely cover your feet. Amara didn't care to compare. She was busy learning to swim in deeper places. One evening, the market closed early for rain. The umbrella flapped wild and she laughed, running with her boxes under her arms like a girl racing the wind. When she reached home, a message blinked on her phone. "Are you the sunrise lady? I want to talk to you about a scholarship idea." The sender signed only with a single initial, J. Amara didn't know that letter would matter. Not yet. She only knew her small boat had entered a bigger river. The scholarship idea was not grand, that's why it worked. The mysterious J wrote again, "I was once helped by a stranger who paid my exam fees. I want to do the same for 5 girls this year. I can raise some funds from friends, but I need an organizer who understands small budgets and big hearts. People say you are that person." Amara read the message twice. She did not know Jay personally, but the words sat down in her chest like a welcome visitor. They met at a quiet cafe that smelled of cinnamon and ambition. Jay arrived in a simple dress and soft makeup, the kind that says, "I am enough." She spoke gently with pauses that respected the listener. She said, "I want the girls to feel seen. Not just helped, seen." They began small, a community hall, plastic chairs that squeaked their own opinions, a borrowed projector. They called it the Dawn Table, a one-day workshop where girls learned money basics, study habits, and self-respect without noise. Amara handled logistics like a conductor, timing, snacks, water, pens, and name tags. She stretched every naira until it did 2 jobs and said thank you. At the end, they called the 5 names. The girls cried quietly. Mothers hugged themselves. A father cleared his throat until his pride found its way out as words. Jay gave the credit to a group of friends and anonymous supporters. The hall didn't need to know the details, that the anonymous hands were mostly Amara's, her profits, her savings box, her steady choices. She didn't want applause. Applause ends when the hands get tired. Purpose keeps walking. Word traveled. Not on billboards, not with microphones, through women who talk while cooking and men who listen when the radio is low. The Whisper Network. There is a girl who sells soap and sends children to school. There is a girl who remembers names. There is a girl who runs programs without noise. Clients began asking for that sunrise lady by name. A church invited her to speak about starting small. She declined the stage and met people one by one afterward, giving practical tips. How to track stock with a lined notebook, how to price without fear, how to say no without apology. With every month, Amara added 1 apprentice, then 2, then 4. Young women learning production, packaging, bookkeeping. She printed a simple value sheet and taped it above the work table. We respect small things. We arrive before our excuses. We tell the truth even when it costs. We leave places better than we met them. The room changed. The music of cutting and wrapping and quiet jokes began to sound like a new kind of future where women didn't have to beg for seat space. They built the table. They set the chairs. They sent invites to other women without asking permission from men who didn't believe in them. Sometimes doubt visited. Doubt is polite. It knocks during the slow days and offers you your old name. "Are you sure?" it asks, wearing Kene's voice. When it came, Amara brewed tea, sat doubt down, and showed her ledgers, profit margins, repeat customers, new stockists, scholarship receipts signed by grateful parents. Doubt would drink, look around at the steady order of things, and leave, embarrassed. Then the city delivered the headline that would turn the whisper into a trumpet. A popular event venue, Golden Haven, nearly collapsed under debt after a partner disappeared with funds. The papers loved it. "Is Golden Haven finished?" they asked in cruel fonts. Everyone expected the place to fold. But a quiet investor came in, negotiated with vendors, stabilized salaries, and set hard rules. The investor never appeared on stage. The manager thanked a small circle of believers and resumed operations, humbled but alive. Jay sent Amara a single text with a line and a prayer hands emoji. Amara replied with a green heart and went back to cutting soap. It would be months before people learned that the quiet investor was the girl with the bright umbrella in the market. It would be months before anyone connected the Dawn Table scholarships to the same purse that saved Golden Haven. It would be months before a white envelope arrived at Amara's workshop with a gold foil seal and a name that made the room go silent. Inside the envelope, an invitation to a wedding at Golden Haven. Amara looked at it, then at the value sheet on the wall. We respect small things, even invitations that carry old pain, even names that once tried to rename you. Respect them, then rise above them. The Whisper Network had carried her gently. Now the city itself was calling her name. The envelope waited on the work table like a quiet drum. White, heavy, with a gold edge that caught the workshop light and made every apprentice look twice. Golden Haven glittered on the inner card. A venue that almost died, rescued by hands that never asked for claps. One of the helpers set down the ribbon spool. "Ma'am, it's his wedding," she said carefully. Amara touched the card with one fingertip. Her chest felt calm and strange, like a river at dawn. Quiet surface, strong current. "Yes," she said. The room listened. The helpers glanced at one another. They had heard bits of the old story. You don't work side by side with a woman and miss the shape of her silence. But they also knew the new story. The ledgers, the stockists, the scholarships. They knew the scent of citrus dawn and the way it made you want to stand up straighter. It is difficult to fear your past when your present is busy. "What will you do?" the helper asked. "Respect the invitation," Amara said, a small smile visiting her mouth, "and respect myself." That evening, she walked home with slow steps. Street vendors were closing. The air smelled like rain thinking about happening. She stopped by a tailor's place, a narrow shop with a rusted fan and a big heart. "I need something simple," she told the tailor. "Quiet elegance, nothing that shouts. Let the stitching do the talking." "What color?" the tailor asked, measuring without asking about the occasion. Tailors learned to respect a woman's mystery. "Midnight blue," Amara said, "like a promise the sky keeps." The days moved. Work didn't pause. Orders came in. A boutique wanted rain morning and gift boxes with a small card that read, "Begin again." The Dawn Table planning continued. The bride-to-be sent spreadsheets. The hall deposit was due. 5 more girls had applied with letters that smelled like courage and cracked pens. At night, Doubt knocked politely. "He called you hopeless," it said, wearing old perfume. "Are you sure you want to walk into his joy like a guest in someone else's movie?" Amara made tea, as always. "I am not walking into his joy. I'm walking into my peace." She opened her notebook and wrote out a list. Arrive early, sit where the light is kind, bring gratitude, speak only when needed, leave when your heart is ready. On the morning before the wedding, a courier arrived with a small package. No sender name. Inside, a hair comb of tiny pearls arranged like soft rain, and a note in looping handwriting, "For the girl who made Dawn arrive early. J." Amara pressed a comb to her palm and felt a series of doors opening in her chest. Golden Haven stood like a lesson that had done its homework. Fresh paint, clean lines, staff moving with soft urgency. The foyer smelled like lilies and polite success. Chandeliers held light without shouting. Tables wore white with gold accents, like a quiet crown. A string quartet rehearsed a love song that had learned good manners. Everything was in place. Amara arrived early, as planned. Her midnight blue dress moved like a thought you don't need to explain. She stepped through the foyer and handed her invitation to a hostess who read names as if every syllable was a guest by itself. The hostess glanced up, eyes widening just a little. Respect, curiosity,
something like recognition, but she said only welcome and led Amara to a seat near the middle, where the light was kind. From somewhere in the building came the sound of laughter that didn't know the history of the room. A photographer tilted flashes like small suns. A planner whispered into a mic. Workers carried trays like promises. Weddings are factories that make memory. The staff at Golden Haven had learned to make them well again. The investor who taught them to stand did so without standing on the stage. Amara breathed. The comb felt light in her hair, the note folded like a breeze in her memory. A few guests arrived and filled the air with perfumes that tried too hard. Some looked at Amara and did quick math. Beautiful dress, quiet face, no loud jewelry. Wealth or wisdom? People struggle to measure what doesn't announce itself. From the aisle, ushers moved like chess pieces. From the entrance, Kenny's friends arrived in suits that wore them. They greeted loudly, the way men do when the day belongs to their friend. Kene appeared last among them. A groom's glow turned up to full brightness. For a second, Amara felt the old smoke stir, but then the new air pushed through. Clean, honest, with the scent of work done well. She returned her eyes to the program. Order of service, exchange of vows, special presentation. The bride arrived on a hush. Her gown understood her. Nothing heavy, nothing that needed to shout. When she reached the front, she turned and her eyes landed on Amara. Something like a nod passed between them, a handshake you can do across a room. The music softened. The ceremony began. They asked Amara to come forward. The aisle stretched like a question, carpet soft under everything she had survived. People murmured in various dialects of surprise, some familiar, some rude, some full of the honesty that arrives when pride leaves the room. Amara walked without hurry. She did not look right or left. Sometimes, winning is a straight line. At the stage, the bride met her with a hug that didn't need microphones. The hall saw two women but felt a larger shape, community standing in heels. The string quartet shifted into a gentle progression that made the chandeliers blink as if about to cry. The MC's voice threaded through. If you have ever booked Golden Haven in the last 6 months and met a staff that still had their jobs, clap, he said. Sound rose like a curtain. If your daughter or cousin attended the dawn table and found courage to register for exams, clap. He added. He didn't list soap. He didn't need to. Whisper Networks work from the ground up. The applause had names in it. The bride spoke again. Some lights are medicine for those of us still learning. When we see a woman stand, our backs remember how. Amara leaned to the mic, not to deliver a speech, but to keep the air honest. I am honored, she said simply, but please know, many hands make dawn. Tonight is proof of that. It was not a TED Talk. It was a simple arrangement of dignity. That is why it landed the way rain lands after dust. From his seat, Kene watched a different movie than the one he had ordered. His jaw worked through calculations. Excellence is difficult for ego. He invited the past to be displayed like a trophy of his progress. Instead, the present had arrived with receipts. Unmasking rarely needs cruelty. It needs clarity. The manager of Golden Haven stepped up for a brief journey speech. We almost closed, he said, without drama. Then a voice on the phone asked the right questions. How much is truth? Where are the leaks? Can you live with rules? We said yes. The investor said yes back. We kept our jobs. He looked toward Amara, but didn't say her name. Thank you, he finished. The kind of thank you that keeps a team from stealing spoons. The bride returned to the mic. Our home, like this venue, will survive not because of loud success, but because of steady truth. We're grateful to those who practice it. Whispers spread. Connections clicked. A cousin who'd heard something from a caterer. A friend who remembered the rescue. A blogger quietly assembling a respectful story rather than gossip. Kene rose for his groom's speech. He thanked parents and planners. He made a joke that worked fine. Then his eyes slid toward the middle row, drawn by gravity renamed. And to those who have supported my wife and I along the way, we are grateful. He could have stopped there. Some stories find dignity at the exit. But pride asked for one more line. Life is about choosing well, he added. The bride touched his sleeve, just a light touch. Kene's sentence sat down, embarrassed. The MC saved it with music.
After the parent dance and before the cake cut, a pause formed, a natural pocket in the night where people stretched legs and freshened lipstick. Amara stood, not to confront, not to perform, to greet the bride, congratulate, and go home with her piece folded neatly in her bag. The bride met her halfway, took both her hands. "Thank you for coming," she said. Close up, joy sat on her like it had paid, not borrowed. "For everything, before today, beyond today." "You're welcome," Amara said. "May your home always choose truth, even when it is not easy." They hugged. Cameras didn't push. Some moments reject flash. When they separated, Kene stood a few steps away, holding a glass that forgot its job. Up close, the polish of his suit could not hide the small emergency in his eyes, the brain calling the heart and getting a busy tone. He spoke her name once, like he was testing if it still worked. "Amara? Congratulations," she said. It was not sarcasm. It was an adult word paid in full. He nodded, smiling while doing manual labor. "You look well." "I am well," she answered. Silence took a chair between them. Around them, the party hummed, a generator of human joy pushing out sound and light. "You've done a lot," he said, voice lower. "People are impressed." "People are kind," she corrected softly. "Work is honest." He tried a laugh that did not know the road. "You know, back then, when we were not watching our mouths," she finished, merciful and exact. "Yes." He swallowed. "I invited you because I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to feel bigger than I was. I'm sorry." "Thank you," she said. "That apology belongs to you first. Treat it well." He nodded. "You could have humiliated me today." "I don't buy what I can't use," she replied. "Humiliation has no place in my house." The bride returned, reading the weather. "Shall we cut the cake?" she asked lightly. "Yes," Kene said. He turned to Amara. "Thank you for coming. For everything?" She smiled. "Choose the truth," she said. "It is slow, but it does not break." The night ended the way good nights do, not with fireworks, but with chairs scraping gently and laughter finding jackets. Outside, Amara walked out under the portico where light turned rain into tiny coins. The staff lined near the exit, habit from her manager's new rules, we end as well as we begin. One by one, they nodded at her as if caching a shared memory. She nodded back. Dignity belongs to everyone in the room, where it belongs to no one. The bride caught up at the steps, lifting her dress slightly to free determined shoes. "There is more dawn table money in the account than we planned," she said softly. "Enough for 10 girls this year." "Make it 5 and build a small library," Amara answered. "One good bookshelf follows a child longer than a single payment." They hugged again. No speeches, no hashtags, just a quiet crown passed hand to hand. The bride returned to her last of the guests, and Amara moved toward the drive where her ride waited. Behind her, the manager of Golden Haven stepped out and hat in hand, like gratitude going to church. "Ma'am," he said, reluctant to say more in public. "Thank you." "Keep your rules," she answered. "They'll thank you back." He nodded as if someone had just handed him a safer future. In the car, Lagos rolled by with late-night stories. Barbecue smoke, laughing youths, the city's orchestra of generators and dreams. Amara rested her head and let the window cool her temple. The comb was still in her hair, pearls patient as stars. She thought of the first batch of soaps that looked shy, the ledger of lives she kept beside the ledger of sales, the little girl sliding a bar into a pocket the day the world said no. Names, she decided, are loans. People can lend you one without warranty. Hopeless, lazy, too slow. Take them if you like, but you will pay interest in self-doubt. Or you can return them quietly and build your own name, brick by steady brick. Honest, patient, excellent, kind. Those names don't shout. They show up early, sweep the floor, and leave places better. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "I was at the wedding. You don't know me. I used to work at Golden Haven. Because we stayed open, I kept my job and paid my mother's hospital bills. She's alive. Thank you." "I'm glad your mother is well," she typed back. "Keep choosing truth." At home, the dress came off, the comb went into its pouch, the mirror returned her face without ceremony. She washed her hands with citrus dawn and watched foam carry the night's dust away. Clean does not mean perfect. It means ready for tomorrow. She dried her hands, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened her notebook. Lessons tonight. Power is quiet when it knows itself. Kindness is a strategy with long returns. If you must stand on a stage, stand to lift, not to point. Never buy humiliation. It ruins the house it enters. She added one more line. The moral that had been growing since a cheap eatery taught her how words tried to become law. Moral: names don't define you. Work, kindness, and time reveal the truth. When people misname you, don't fight the label, outgrow it. They will correct themselves at your harvest. She closed the book and placed it beside the value sheet pinned above her desk. Outside, rain finally kept its promise. Inside, sleep arrived like a gentle guard. Somewhere across the city, a groom learned the weight of apologies, and a bride counted mercies like prayer beads. In a market stall, ribbons waited. In a hall called Golden Haven, a team locked doors and went home to families who slept because their tomorrow had a job. And in a small room where a woman had once cried until silence held her hand, the dawn didn't just come, it stayed.